So the first thing I'll ask is, if you were to paint a picture of your town of Plains, what would you say?
If I were to paint?
If you were to tell me about what the town is like, if you were to paint me a picture.
Oh, you mean, okay, you're talking about theoretically.
Yeah.
A small town and a big family.
Old time charm. I mean, there's so much history here. You go back. We're a laid back town. I mean, we really are.
Plains is a small town of 700 people, but we're an international town. We get people from all over the world every day. I've noticed that the majority of the people that come through the door at this retail location are from Wisconsin, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Illinois, then Germany, United Kingdom, and Canada.
The hometown that everybody would love to grow up in, because I did grow up here. So it's a peaceful little place, and everybody loves each other, and it's just a good place to call home.
We have a lot of quirky and neat stores here that people love to shop in. Whether they want peanut butter ice cream or they want to come into our store here and buy some political buttons, this is the largest political retail memorabilia dealer in the United States. I have been challenged, but the people that have challenged after they've been in the store agreed.
Well, I started this business in '92. We call it a general store now.
Yeah.
And of course, we're still in the peanut business, but we added other stuff that people was wanting as they come to Plains. Plains at one time was not, it was on the map, but that's about all it was, just on the map. And it's a thriving little town now.
The peanut industry is huge here. You buy from the farmers. They go through the shelling process right over here at the plant, the peanut plant. Then they will treat, which is what they're doing now, and they turn them into seed peanuts. And they go back to the farmers to replant.
When you meet people on the sidewalk or go into a store and talk to them, you find out very quickly that somebody's kin to somebody else, who's kin to somebody else, who knows you this way, who knew your daddy, knew your grandmama. And it's a community that looks after each other.
We're at the Buffalo Cafe, which is our town restaurant. And so we're a nonprofit. All our proceeds that we earn here go back into the community, whether that be in the form of events or activities or needs for the community.
If somebody gets sick, everybody takes hold. You know, somebody passes away, the town takes hold.
We had a lady in my church that just passed, and we had her funeral this week, and I bet there was over, I mean, for Plains, for a funeral in our church, it was over 150 people at the funeral service. And there was food to feed probably 300 people.
Well, it's a nice little town, and the people is real easy to get along with. And just about everybody in Plains, well, in Sumter County, love Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter to Plains is like the guiding light and the backbone and the soul of the town. They take an active interest in everything, and they're just regular town people that just happen to have Secret Service protection.
He has always he has stayed true to just being a resident of Plains, being a friend to everybody, you know, just a neighbor. You know, around here we refer to them as Jimmy and Rosalynn, not former President Carter. You know, when you see them, you're still respectful. I am. It's hard for me to say, well, hey, Jimmy, how's it going today? You know, I always want to say, well, you know, it's good to see you, President Carter. That's just, I think, being respectful. But he doesn't, he doesn't expect that. That he wants to just be a good old boy from Plains, Georgia, and, you know, he grew up with most of the people here. He and Rosalynn both did.
A lot of people, you know, think of him as the president. We think about him as Mr. Jimmy, and that's how I refer to him, you know, when I see him. This is where he came from. This is where he got all his teachings from his teachers. You know, Miss Julia Coleman, his teacher, is the one who told the class, any of you could be anything you want to be, even President of the United States. So he took that to heart.
President Carter's daddy used to own this building. This is where he started the Carter Warehouse off in, is in this building. So whenever President Carter found out I was fixing to open up a peanut store, he volunteered to do my grand opening. So he done my grand opening for me in 1992.
You have people here who are still living, who grew up with him, you know, who can tell you the stories of him as a younger man, of Rosalind Carter as a young girl, and that's what they mean to us. You know, we know who they are, we know what they've done, what they've accomplished, but they're still just a part of the community. I mean, they came home. They didn't have to come home, but they did.
Most people here, if you ask them what their political affiliation is, you would get no answer. President Carter is a cherished town member, just like I am and just like everyone else is here. There's no culture, racial, economic barriers here. Some days we might not all like each other, but we all get along, and if someone needs help, we're all there to help them.
He's a father figure. He's always been there whenever the town needed anything. He's always helped out families that were in need. Before he ever became president, he'd taken care of families and looked after families. If they needed anything, you know, he was always there for me. Like I said, we're a big family, and he just kind of heads the family. Well, I've known him all my life, and whenever I got ready to go to work for the post office, I asked him for a letter of recommendation for my resume, and he gave it to me. And so that always meant a lot to me. And I had a beauty shop, and I used to do Miss Rosalind's hair. Whenever my husband and I got married, I used all of their silver for our wedding reception and all, you know, so. And that means they just, whatever he could do, you know, whatever they could do, if any way they could help or anything they could do or anything that would make it extra special, they went out of their way to do so. Most of the time, whenever we see them, they feel like they're family, but then every once in a while, you're going to get a visitor, tourist or somebody that's going to come back by and kind of humble you a little bit and remind you, this man was the 39th President of the United States. You know, and it makes you think, oh my gosh, he was. I actually know the 39th President of the United States, you know. And so yes, you know, we know him as both. You know, we honor his wishes. We don't bother him. I don't bother him, you know, whenever. He did come in here to see me back in September. And we talked and visited for a little while, but as far as bothering him or asking him for anything, I don't, you know, and I'm glad to see him. Whenever I see him, he always hugs me, he always shakes my hand.
Jimmy Carter is a real great man, and I hope his work continues from now on in my lifetime. As long as he lives, you know, it'll be in the history books. The first president from the South.
He's a very approachable person. Not that you can go up in his yard and talk to him or whatever, but when he was able to, both of them, you know, would come downtown and walk around, or later on when he was mostly in a wheelchair or whatever, they would bring him downtown and he would go in every business.
Mr. Jimmy and Miss Rosalind would walk from their house. They walked every afternoon when they were able. They would stop here first, and he would come in and sit on this stool. It's right over by the door, and Miss Rosalind, there's a chair, she would sit in the chair, and they would just come and talk with us and want to know how business was going. You know, he's always business-minded, so he wanted to know how business was going, and then he would visit with any tourists or any people were in the store and take pictures with them. And then in a little bit, he'd say, all right, Rosie, come on, let's go. So he'd reach for her hand, and they'd hold hands, and they'd walk out, walk down the sidewalk, and go to the next business. But this was his stool, and he always sat on it when he came in. But they always walked hand, and that's another thing that I'll remember him is whenever they came downtown and were together, they always held hands. I've got another picture when they came down when we had trunk-or-treating on Main Street, and they came and were walking down Main Street holding hands, going up and talking to the kids and all the little booths. So he's very involved in Plains, and has made a lot of, you know, before his health got bad, he would meet with his church and the community and say, what are y'all gonna do when I'm gone? How y'all gonna keep it going? You know.
The Friends of Jimmy Carter, we own the cafe, and it's sad to say, but for example, with the cafe, that week after the Carter Center put out the notice about hospice care, we had to go to our train menu because we were so overrun with people here, both the news media and tourists, people who just came. And I think that's one thing about them. I met people that week and talked to them, people who just wanted to be here, not necessarily wanting to catch a glimpse or anything like that. They just want to be here.
Well, Jimmy Carter will always be alive in Plains, whether he's physically here or not, but we will be a presidential burial site here too, with the Carters interned here. And President Carter has given this a lot of thought, and our economic future here looks very bright and rich. Tourism will continue to pick up.
Well, in the next few years, I hope that we will continue to thrive on people coming, and the house, one day when they're both gone, will also be open as a museum. So that'll be a few years, and after they both pass, that they'll have the house ready for people to be able to go through it.
When he won the presidency, Plains had 10,000 people a day in town. That's what they are predicting that we will go through again. It's sad, but then I think he would want it that way too. He's always wanted, to promote Plains. The store owners, he wants the store owners to do good, and that's the plan. They don't want to shut us down when everything does happen. When he does pass, it's not like, they're going to do their best to keep all the stores open because that's what he would want. Which is sad to say, you don't want to profit off of someone's death, but
Prior to President Carter getting sick, we were only open 2 days a week, Saturday and Sunday, 6 hours a day. Right now, we've gone back to 7 days a week because I want to be here to share the stories of the people coming. I met President Carter 20 years ago. I met him at Sunday school. I helped work on his campaign. Everything he has done is to promote the town and to keep the town alive economically. So with one case, you might look at it as guilty, but on the other case, this is what he strived for, so I'm going to be happy about it.
The Lillian Carter Nursing Home up here, the owners of that are talking about preserving the room where he was born. And the reason is because he's my uncle. I don't know if you knew that, but he's my uncle. And so my grandma was a nurse, and she worked up there, and she did not want to go home, and so because she was at work, and she went into labor at work. So he was born at the hospital, the Y Sanitarium. But they're wanting to preserve that room where he was as a baby or whatever. And so I got the letter, and I was reading it yesterday, and I don't know why. I guess it's because of the times. I just sat here and cried because I was thinking, it's to that point now, wanting to preserve everything, even the room that he was born in. So it was very poignant to me. And so it is, it didn't make you mad. But when that week, when the media was here, it was aggravating that they just sat here because what they were doing was waiting for him to die. And we know that. All of us in town know that. But once again, it's a necessary evil. And I talked to several of them, and they were very nice. Nobody was out of the way or anything. And I had several to apologize. We are so sorry, but this is our job, So yeah, it kind of hurts your feelings that, we're going to have a big boom in the economy after they're gone, but that's what's going to happen.
I don't know that we'll ever be ready. That's one of those things whenever you lose somebody that you love, that you care about, that you've known all your life, you just feel like you're losing part of yourself. It's going to be sad. It's going to be hard on everybody in this town and from this town. I'm going to be heartbroken because, like I said, I've known him. I know the kids. I know Amy. I know the whole family, and I was friends with Miss Rosalind, knew Miss Lillian. So it's just like losing a part of your family. Whenever you've known them all your life, you can't help it, especially whenever you see them. He made a point of coming to see me. He came by the first time, and I was gone to a doctor's visit, and he told her to leave me a note telling him he had come by to see how I was doing, and she left me a note, the substitute left me a note, and then 2 weeks later he came back by and I was here, so.
There you go.
So, yeah, I was right. It made me feel good to think that he would want to come in
Yeah.
to see me.
When we opened up here, we were rushing to get open, and I said to my wife, I wonder if President Carter really lives here, because I wasn't even that sure. And we look up and they come in to welcome us to the community. One time I was sick and couldn't come into the shop. He went upstairs and sat with me for an hour. I have memory after memory. Rosalind would send me little presents. I mean, just all fond, good memories.
I've catered some events for him and his family, so I know one night when he was coming up and he was in the wheelchair at this time, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Jimmy, how you feeling?" He said, "Good." He said, "I'm much better now that I know you're gonna feed me."
The Carters, really, they transcend politics. They're much more than the political arena. In fact, their legacy will not be really politics. It's going to be the Carter Center and the eradication of the guinea worm and the preservation of the monarch butterfly and the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers and Habitat for Humanity and the things that they've been part of. The foundation, the Carter Plains Foundation here in town that upgrades substandard housing in this area. All these things that give back to the community and work to make a better and more well-rounded and healthy community is their legacy. I believe people will come to Plains forever to see, because the Carters are two of the most well-known figures worldwide. I don't mean to be melodramatic when I say this, but they're really going to be more like Gandhi figures or Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela's, rather than a past president, former president, and former first lady. They're true humanitarians that have traveled worldwide and done amazing things and are still doing amazing things through their efforts.
The person that he is, who came from this little tiny town and became the former leader of the free world and an elder and all these many, many things that he has done with his life. But I want people to remember that it all started right here. All of us in town are trying to give back to the community. I can't imagine any other place to be.
Da